10 pantry staples sold in Australia to avoid. You're standing in the aisle, reading labels, thinking you're making smart choices for your family. But what if the foods you've trusted for years aren't actually what they seem? What if walking past those everyday items, tins you've opened 100 times, packets you've relied on? What if you've been quietly bringing home things that shouldn't be there at all? This isn't about scare tactics or telling you to overhaul your entire kitchen tonight. This is about 10 common products sitting in Australian pantries right now that have secrets most shoppers never discover. And once you see what's really inside them, you can't unsee it. Here's the thing. You go to Woolies or Coles, you grab what looks familiar, what you grew up with, what seems simple and safe. Tomato paste, chicken stock, olive oil. These are basics, right? The ingredients you don't think twice about. But when you actually stop and examine the back of those containers, something strange happens. You start seeing words you can't pronounce. Numbers instead of ingredients. Sugar where it has no business being. And you realize this isn't the food your grandparents bought. It's been changed quietly over decades. And most of us never noticed. Take something as simple as instant noodles. Every uni student's best mate. Cheap, quick, filling. Walk into any Aussie supermarket and you'll find dozens of varieties. Chicken flavor, beef flavor, vegetarian options. They're convenient when you've worked late or can't be bothered cooking. But turn that packet over. Look at the sodium content. A single serve can contain upwards of 1,800 milligrams of sodium. That's nearly 80% of your entire recommended daily intake. In one meal. One cheap, convenient meal. And it's not just the salt. The flavor sachets are loaded with monosodium glutamate, artificial colorings, and preservatives your body doesn't recognize as actual food. Your taste buds get a hit, sure, but your kidneys, your heart, your blood pressure, they're dealing with a chemical storm. Now, you might be thinking, well, everyone knows instant noodles aren't healthy. Fair point. But what about something you'd consider wholesome? Breakfast cereal marketed to kids with cartoon characters and promises of vitamins. Walk down the cereal aisle and you'll see boxes covered in ticks and nutritional claims. Fortified with iron. High in fiber. Good source of whole grains. Parents grab these thinking they're giving their children a decent start to the day. But flip the box. Check the sugar content per serve. Some of the most popular kids' cereals contain more sugar per 100 grams than a chocolate biscuit. They're basically dessert disguised as breakfast. And because they're fortified with added vitamins, they get to wear a health halo. It's clever marketing, but it's not honest. Or consider something as fundamental as bread. You'd think bread is straightforward. Flour, water, yeast, maybe a bit of salt. But pick up a standard sliced white loaf from the supermarket and read the ingredients list. You'll find emulsifiers, preservatives, dough conditioners, added sugars, vegetable oils. Why does bread need vegetable oil? Why does it need sugar? Because industrial baking prioritizes shelf life and softness over actual nutrition. The result is a product that can sit in your pantry for weeks without going stale, but it's so processed that your body barely recognizes it as real food. It spikes your blood sugar, offers minimal fiber, and leaves you hungry again within an hour. And then there's tomato paste. You use it in spag bowl, you stir it into curries, you spread it on pizza bases. It's a staple. But not all tomato paste is created equal. Some brands sold in Australia contain added salt and sugar to enhance flavor and extend shelf life. You'd expect tomato paste to be just concentrated tomatoes. But check the label. If it lists more than 1 or 2 ingredients, you're not getting pure tomato. You're getting a processed product designed for convenience, not quality. The irony is, making your own tomato paste at home takes minutes and costs less. But we've been conditioned to reach for the tube or the tin without questioning what's inside. Let's talk about stock cubes and liquid stocks. They're the backbone of soups, stews, risottos. You dissolve 1 cube or pour a bit from the carton, and suddenly you've got depth of flavor. Except you haven't, not really. What you've got is salt, MSG, hydrolyzed vegetable protein, and artificial flavorings designed to trick your brain into thinking it's tasting something rich and savory. The actual chicken or beef content? Minimal at best. Some brands contain less than 2% real meat. The rest is filler, stabilizers, and flavor enhancers. It's not nourishing your body. It's just seasoning water with chemicals. And the sodium levels? A single stock cube can pack over 1,000 milligrams. Use 2 in a pot of soup, and you've just blown past your daily limit before you've even added any other ingredients. Flavored yogurt is another one. It sits in the dairy aisle, surrounded by images of fresh fruit and wholesome goodness. Low-fat, high-protein, probiotic. Sounds healthy, doesn't it? But look at the sugar content. A single tub of strawberry yogurt can contain as much sugar as a soft drink. 12, 15, even 20 grams in a small serve. And because it's labeled as yogurt, people assume it's good for them. They feed it to their kids for breakfast or pack it in lunch boxes. But what they're actually serving is a dessert masquerading as health food. The fruit pieces? Often sweetened or made from concentrate. The probiotics? Present, yes, but swimming in a sugar bath that negates much of their benefit. Now, let's look at something that genuinely shocks people when they find out. Pre-grated cheese. It's convenient, no doubt. You grab a bag, sprinkle it on pasta, done. But pre-grated cheese contains anti-caking agents, cellulose powder, usually derived from wood pulp, to stop the shreds from clumping together. It's technically safe to eat. It won't harm you. But you're paying more money for cheese that's been diluted with filler. And it doesn't melt as smoothly as a block of cheese you grate yourself. The trade-off for convenience is quality. And most people don't realize they're making that trade until someone points it out. Then there's the issue with olive oil that isn't really olive oil. Australia imports massive quantities of olive oil every year. Some of it is genuine, cold-pressed, high-quality stuff. But some of it has been blended with cheaper seed oils, mislabeled, or stored poorly, losing much of its nutritional value. Extra virgin olive oil should have a distinct flavor. Peppery, slightly bitter, robust. If your olive oil tastes like nothing, it's probably been diluted or heavily processed. The problem is, unless you're buying from a trusted source or checking for certification marks, you can't always tell. You might think you're cooking with heart-healthy fats, but you're actually using a product that's been stripped of most of its beneficial compounds. Let's not forget processed meats. Ham, salami, bacon, sausages. They're breakfast staples, sandwich fillers, barbecue essentials. But processed meats are classified by the World Health Organization as Group 1 carcinogens, the same category as tobacco. That doesn't mean eating a sausage is as dangerous as smoking a cigarette, but it does mean there's strong evidence linking regular consumption of processed meat to increased cancer risk, particularly colorectal cancer. The preservatives used, nitrates and nitrites, are what give these meats their pink color and extended shelf life. But when cooked at high temperatures, these compounds can form carcinogenic substances. It's not about never eating bacon again. It's about understanding that these aren't foods you want to rely on every day. And finally, there's the one that catches almost everyone off guard: canned soup. It's marketed as a quick, wholesome meal. Hearty vegetable, chicken and corn, minestrone. The labels show steaming bowls of comfort. But open a tin and heat it up, and what you're actually eating is a salt bomb with minimal vegetables and dubious nutritional value. A single serving can contain over 1,000 milligrams of sodium, and that's assuming you only eat half the tin. Most people eat the whole thing. The vegetables are overcooked to the point of mush, stripped of most vitamins. The protein content is laughable. And the cream in creamy soups? Often not cream at all, but thickeners and stabilizers designed to mimic the texture. It's convenient, yes, but convenience comes at a cost. So why does this matter? Why should you care if your stock cube has MSG or your cereal has extra sugar? Because these aren't isolated choices, they're patterns. When you eat processed foods regularly, you're not just getting a bit more salt here or a few extra grams of sugar there. You're conditioning your palate to expect intense artificial flavors. You're training your body to crave quick energy spikes, instead of sustained nutrition. And over months and years, that adds up. It shows up in your energy levels, your mood, your weight, your long-term health. The foods you thought were harmless because they're sold in supermarkets, because everyone eats them, because they've been around forever, they're quietly shaping your health in ways you might not notice until it's too late. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The food industry isn't primarily interested in your health. It's interested in profit. And profit comes from creating products that are cheap to produce, have a long shelf life, and taste good enough that you keep buying them. That means adding sugar to make bland foods palatable, adding salt to enhance flavor and act as a preservative, using emulsifiers and stabilizers to improve texture and appearance, using artificial colors to make things look fresh. None of these additions are there to nourish you. They're there to make the product more marketable, more shelf-stable, more profitable. And the regulations? They're not as tight as you might think. Food standards. Australia, New Zealand sets guidelines, but enforcement isn't perfect. Products slip through. Labels can be misleading. A product can claim to be low-fat while being loaded with sugar. It can say no added sugar, but be sweetened with concentrated fruit juice, which is still sugar. It can boast natural flavors that are anything but natural. The rules allow for a lot of wiggle room, and companies exploit that. But here's where it gets interesting. You have more power than you think. Every time you pick up a product, you can choose to read the label. You can choose to put it back if it doesn't meet your standards. You can choose to buy whole foods instead of processed ones. You can choose to cook from scratch more often. And yes, that takes time. It takes effort. It's not as convenient as grabbing a tin or tearing open a packet. But the payoff is real. You know exactly what you're eating. You control the ingredients. You save money in the long run. And most importantly, you break the cycle of dependency on processed foods that were never designed with your well-being in mind. Think about the families who grew up eating fresh, home-cooked meals. They didn't have aisles full of instant noodles and pre-packaged soups. They had vegetables from the garden, meat from the butcher, bread from the baker. And yes, life was different then. People had more time, food was cheaper relative to income, cooking skills were passed down through generations, but the principle still holds. Real food doesn't need a 10-ingredient list. It doesn't need preservatives or artificial flavors. It just needs to be what it is. Now, you don't have to throw out your entire pantry tonight. You don't have to become a purist who only eats organic, hand-foraged superfoods. That's not realistic for most people, and it's not necessary. But you can start small. Swap the instant noodles for a quick stir-fry with fresh vegetables and rice. Choose plain yogurt and add your own fruit instead of buying the pre-sweetened stuff. Buy a block of cheese and grate it yourself. Make your own stock from leftover bones and vegetable scraps. Read labels. Ask questions. Be skeptical of health claims on packaging. And here's the thing. Once you start paying attention, you can't stop. You start noticing patterns. You start seeing how much of the supermarket is designed to sell you convenience at the expense of quality. You start realizing that the quick and easy meals often aren't saving you as much time as you thought. And they're definitely not saving your health. You become more intentional about what you bring into your home, what you feed your family, what you put in your body. Because at the end of the day, this isn't about perfection. It's about awareness. It's about making informed choices instead of defaulting to what's marketed to you. It's about recognizing that 10 common pantry staples sold in Australia aren't what you think they are, and that you deserve better than products engineered to maximize profit while minimizing nutrition. So the next time you're at the shops, take an extra minute, turn the packet around, read what's actually in there. And if you don't like what you see, put it back. Choose something simpler. Choose something real. Your body will notice the difference, even if it takes time. And the more people who start making these choices, the more the industry will have to respond. Because at the end of the day, they sell what we buy. And if we stop buying rubbish, they'll stop making it. That's the real power here. Not in avoiding 10 specific products, but in shifting the way you think about food altogether. Once you see through the marketing, once you understand what's really in those tins and packets and boxes, you can't go back to blind trust. And that's a good thing. That's exactly where awareness begins.